You don't need more marketing, you need better marketing. You need to focus on the right actions, and I'd rather see people focus on one or two marketing channels and go deep than try to do five things.
Welcome to a special episode of Ramblings of a Geek. My name's Adam Henneman. I've been with the MSP space for 25 years or so. I have a special guest today. Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing is here. We're going to talk about marketing today. Marketing is one of those topics that we talk about in peer groups all the time. In fact, it comes up every single week. If not every single week, it's certainly every other week. And usually it's in the guise of, boy, marketing sure stinks. I'm really bad at marketing. I don't know what to do about marketing. And a lot of times we have conversations around like, what are you doing? And what do you have for a plan? And usually it's like, oh, a plan? And that's usually where the conversation starts to fall apart a little bit. So I have a strategic marketing person here today. Tim is has marketing strategy written all over him. And so Tim, I'd love to just to kind of pick your brain about marketing. But first, why don't you tell the group a little bit about like who you are, what you do, and a little bit about Rialto.
Cool. I appreciate it, Adam. Thanks for having me, and excited to dig into this with you today. So, like you said, my name's Tim Fitzpatrick. I'm with Rialto Marketing, and what I do is I help MSPs build their marketing engine, and escape the marketing maze. A lot of them are just stuck in the marketing maze, going all these different directions, trying to figure it out. And if you want to get out of the maze, you have to build a marketing engine that is focused around three key areas: strategy, planning, and leadership. Strategy is the fuel for the engine. Planning is where we're picking apart and assembling the engine, and leadership is where you got to have a mechanic who's going to oversee that engine and optimize it and make sure it's running efficiently. Without those three things in alignment, you're never going to be able to build an engine that's going to yield consistent results. And so that's what I do, and where I live within marketing. I love marketing. It's dynamic. It's constantly changing, but the fundamentals of marketing don't change. And that's where I live.
Awesome. So when we think about the typical MSP, right? The MSP business owner is largely tech turned business owner, right? That's just that's the typical nature. Now, obviously there's exceptions to the rule, but when we think about that typical MSP business owner, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see with MSPs when they're thinking about marketing and trying to figure out what they're going to do for marketing?
Yeah. There's plenty of mistakes, not just MSPs, but all business owners make when it comes to marketing. But the biggest one that I see with MSPs is they skip strategy and they go right to tactics, right? So in my engine analogy, what's happening there is when you jump right to tactics, you're picking parts and assembling the engine, but you skip strategy and you got no fuel for the engine. And then they're like, well, gosh, I've done all these different things and it's not working. Well, that's because things are out of alignment. You've skipped steps. The sequencing in marketing is just as important as what you do. If you get the sequence out of whack, things aren't going to work. And so when we jump to tactics without strategy, we're getting sequencing out of alignment. And so that's the biggest mistake I see, is right to tactics. And look, most people do this, but MSPs, they're very, action oriented, very, technical people, right? They have a bias towards action. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you got to be able to take a step back and think about strategy as a whole, because that's what's going to fuel the engine. And so we have to take the time to do that, because if you don't take the time to do it, what ends up happening is you go 6 months down the road or 12 months down the road and you're like, I've done all these things, but nothing's working.
Absolutely. It sounds familiar to me when I think about MSPs in general, when they think about picking a tool or picking a solution for their end client or for themselves. And because you get wrapped up in the idea around, I'm going to look at all the whiz-bang features and all the different things that you can do with this new tool before you go, hey, does this tool actually solve the problem that I'm trying to solve, right? And it sounds a little bit like a similar situation. So if that is kind of where MSPs kind of start the thought, and they because like you mentioned, bias for action, they're going to like go out there and do a bunch of stuff. And maybe it's time to slow down and plan ahead a little bit. So when you think about planning ahead, right, which is kind of where the avenue that you live, what do you think MSP should be doing instead? Like what does a plan look like?
Yeah, there's multiple aspects to a plan. Everything that we talk about today, just remember strategy before tactics, right? So with strategy, when I think about marketing strategy, I think about what your target market, who are your ideal clients, right? Who are the
Hmm.
people you're serving? Because that drives everything. Once you understand who those people are, then you can create a message that's going to attract and engage those people and differentiate your MSP. MSPs really struggle with differentiation. They're all saying the same thing. We can't create a message until we understand who we're targeting, right? So when we skip that targeting aspect, everything down the line is off. So we first have to look at strategy. Who are we targeting? What are we going to say to them? Then we can start to look at putting our plan together. And when I think about marketing planning, I think about it in 90-day sprints,
Okay.
right? It's 90 days is long enough to start seeing traction, whether are you headed in the right direction, but it's short enough where we can make adjustments and course corrections. It also keeps things simple, right? A 1-year marketing plan takes way too much time. They become too complex. And after the first 90 days, you're changing all the stuff anyway. So like,
Sure.
why'd you spend the time to do it? Keep it simple and very actionable and know what are we focusing on over the next 90 days. And then we just wash, rinse, repeat every 90 days. So when I look at marketing planning, I look at 6 key things. One is target market, right? Who are you serving? Then we need to look at what's your goal? What's your goal for the next 90 days? Okay. What do you want to accomplish? These are, outcome based goals, right? It could be, they need to be specific. They need to be measurable. I want to generate 5 new clients in the next 90 days, whatever it may be. The thing I always tell people is it's great to have a goal. You need to know where you're headed. But with an outcome based goal, there are all kinds of things beyond your control. So I don't like people to get so attached to the goal where like if they don't hit it, the wheels come off and they're not motivated and then they just throw their hands up. So you got to have a goal, but you need to be realistic about what you can actually control in hitting that goal. Okay. What I like to focus on more are the actions that we can take to hit that goal.
Okay.
And I'll get to that in a sec. The next thing we need to know in our plan is what's our budget and what are our resources? How much money do we have and what resources do we have? Resources is people and time and capability. So, like I just talked to an MSP this morning on a call. It's just him. He's just getting started. So, like he has like next to no budget and it's his time. That's okay. At least we know what he has to work with, because when we know what we have to work with and what our capabilities are, we know how much we can bite off. We
Sure.
don't want to bite off too much. We don't want to bite off too little, right? Needs to be Goldilocks, right? It needs to be what's right in the middle, because then we're not, if we try to take on too much, we're just not going to do anything well. And if we don't take on enough, well, then we're just slowing down our progress, right? And we need to know capabilities, because we can't assign something to somebody that's not in their wheelhouse.
Right.
Right? That's not going to be effective either. So this third step, that's what it helps us do. It knows us what we have to work with and how much we can take on. The fourth thing we need to do in our plan is we need to know where we're starting from. What have we done from a marketing standpoint? Because if we don't know where we're starting, how can we create a plan to get where we want to go? It's like our GPS. I can't say, hey, I want to get to Denver International Airport and not tell it where I'm starting from.
Sure.
That's what we're doing in this step. Okay. And, when we do this for clients, we can go very deep. If you're doing this yourself, just what are you working on? Do you have a website in place? Do you know who your ideal clients are? Mm-hmm. Are you confident in your messaging? Are you on social media? Are you creating content? Just get a baseline of what you're doing. Then from there, we can outline what you're going to focus on in the next 90 days. Most people take on too much. You don't need more marketing. You need better marketing. Okay.
Yep.
You need to focus on the right actions. And I'd rather see people focus on 1 or 2 marketing channels and go deep than try to do 5 things. So
Sure.
just you need less in most cases. And it's just going to be, what are we going to do over the next 90 days? What are the actions we're going to take in the next 90 days to help us get closer to our goal? And then the last thing is metrics. What metrics are we going to track? If we don't track metrics, we're just guessing on what's working or whether we're headed in the right direction. The metrics will identify whether we're headed in the right direction and will help us make data-driven decisions. And we're just making incremental course corrections. It's those small changes over time that make all the difference in the world. And so those are the 6 main things that we look at in a 90-day plan.
Okay.
Keep it simple, and you wash, rinse, repeat every 90 days.
Love it. I love it, especially with the metrics, right? Because so many times people talk about marketing and it just doesn't work, but they have no idea what's working or what's not. I mean, the ultimate thing that they're saying doesn't work is they're not getting leads, right? They're not getting conversations with people. But that's the end, that's the destination, not so much the pieces in the middle. And so finding metrics that work for you or that will indicate whether things are working or not working is important as well.
I'll tell you, here's the 3 key core metrics that I look for initially as a baseline. One is leads. How many leads did you generate in a given time period?
Sure. Lead
source. So where are those leads coming from? It was a referral. Did they find you on your website? And look, lead source is never going to be 100% accurate. But even if you just ask when you're on a call, an initial call with a lead, like, how did you hear about us? Is so much better than where most MSPs are now. Like, they have no idea where this stuff's coming from most of the time. So ask. And when you understand that, you'll know, like, well, oh my gosh, like 75% of our leads are coming from referral.
Yep.
Okay, great. Like, that's good information for you to have. It also tells you, like, hey, we've been working on this for the last 6 months, but we haven't generated any leads from it in the last 6 months, right? And then new clients. When you understand those 3 numbers, you know where the leads are coming from, and you know how many leads that you need to generate a new client. That's really powerful information that a lot of people don't have.
Right. Yeah. Especially because you think about kind of working your way through the sales funnel, right? If you don't have enough leads at the top of the funnel, then it's hard to close the right amount of new clients that you need. And I think a lot of MSPs are struggling with, like, they have no leads, like 0 leads or 1, right? And then you try and chase that one probably not great fit lead down, and you're like, well, I probably shouldn't sign these guys as a client, but but I have this is the one lead I got, so I might as well try and capture that revenue. And I think that's where this marketing strategy comes into play, because the term I use frequently is a random acts of marketing, where they're like, well, I'm going to try this week and that next week, and not, there's no strategy behind it other than they know they should be doing something, and absent someone telling them to make a plan, they just they pick what they think is going to make the most sense, right? So when you think about different MSPs at different sizes, right? Your $0 to $1 million MSP probably has a little bit different marketing plan or marketing expectations than maybe like a $5 or $10 million MSP. And obviously there's a number of different sections in there. What are some of the areas that MSP should focus on from a planning perspective as it relates to some of those different segments?
Yeah, it's so these are generalizations, right? Everybody's situation is unique, right? One of the things I say is there's no one size fits all plan. And it's, so many times people are out there saying, oh, hey, this is what I did, right? Here's my framework. Just follow, it's paint by numbers, and people do it and it doesn't work. And it's because everybody's in different situations, and you can't just take an off-the-shelf plan and expect it to work for you. But in general, let's go over just some of the things that you would tend to focus on at a given level, right? So below $1 million, this is where I think you're really starting to build the engine, where you should be focusing on building the engine. If you want to generate consistent business over time, you have to have a marketing engine in place. And so we're focusing on that strategic foundation. who are our ideal clients? What's our message? What are our services and our offers to the market? That's your strategic foundation. From there, we want to focus on, what are the 1 to 2 lead gen channels we're really going to focus on and go deep in. Most MSPs are generating the majority of their revenue through referral. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not predictable and it's not scalable. And so you've got to have, and the other analogy I use for this is relying on referrals is like riding a unicycle. It'll get you there, but if that tire goes flat, Adam, you're screwed. Like you're not reaching your goals.
Right.
When we focus on multiple lead generation channels, well, then we're riding a bike or a 3-wheeler or a 4-wheeler. And so if one of those tires goes flat, it may take us a little longer to get there, but we're still going to get there. So we've got to have multiple lead gen channels. If referrals is one, that's great. What else are we going to do? So go deep in a few lead gen channels at this stage, and then just build simple systems. Okay, we don't need to overcomplicate marketing, but build systems so that whatever you're doing, you're doing it consistently over time. You don't drop the ball. It's not, hey, we're going to publish a blog post twice a month. And you do it twice a month for the first 2 months, and then it's just haphazard from there, right? So we want to make sure we've got those simple systems in place. What we want to avoid at this stage is overcomplicating things, right? Too many tools, too many tactics, and investing in channels that we're just not ready for. Next stage, let's say the next stage is about 1 to 5 million, right? And here I think you're fine tuning the engine a bit. You're getting a little bit of traction, you're marketing, but maybe it's here and there. You don't have as much clarity as you would like. What you're typically focusing on here is how can we convert better? Do we need better calls to action? Do we need better nurturing throughout the customer journey? Do we have landing pages set up? What can we do to convert on a more efficient and effective basis? Feedback loops become important here. So getting feedback from people on your team, clients, right? Like as you put information out there, how's it working, right? So that we can get tweaks from that, right? A lot of MSPs are heavily sales focused, right? And so having a feedback loop between sales and what you're doing, whoever's managing marketing, is really important. Making sure that we're strengthening our retention and our referral processes, right? A lot of MSPs have pretty strong retention and good referrals, but not necessarily systems for it. And as you grow, I think it becomes even more and more critical that you have really strong systems for that in place. What you want to avoid here, scaling things that just aren't working, right? You're like, this goes back to like, if you don't know what's working, you could easily spend time trying to do something better that's not worth getting better at.
Yeah, let's sink a bunch of time into something that just isn't yielding results. That's probably not the right thing to do. But as I mentioned already before, a couple times, is the consistency is important. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like, where do you go shift from? Okay, I've been trying this for X number of months or years or whatever. It's clearly not working. When does that shift? Or like, what do you think? What do you think that happens?
So that shift, it's going to depend on what you're doing, but most marketing activity, I think you need to give 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
Some things you need even more than that. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean that you're not making changes and adjustments along the way.
Fair enough.
It just means that you're not giving up on it, right? Because what I see is people are like, well, I've done this for 2 months. It's not working. Of course it's not. It's not working. You haven't given it enough time. But that's where the metrics come back in, right? Based on what our goal is for that specific activity, we can identify the metrics that are going to help define whether we're getting towards that goal. And then we look at it in what's happening after the first month, 2 months, right? 3 months, and look at the numbers and go, okay, Are we heading the right direction? If we're not heading the right direction, what tweaks should we make to try and improve this, right? But you have to give these things time. Like if you look at, content marketing or SEO, that's a year at
Right.
least, right? It takes time to do that. Can you get quick wins in there? Yes, you can. But even paid ads, which can be quicker wins, it still takes 3 months or more
Right.
to optimize those campaigns. Set up your audiences, get the audience refined, tweak the messaging a bit based on the data that you're seeing. So, none of this stuff is immediate.
Right. Yeah, I like to tell MSPs that if they, they should be doing something for SEO, like write some blog posts, do that on a consistent basis, but you're not expecting any results for a year. And if you do, cool, you got lucky, but you're not going to see the results turn around. So if that's going to be the only place you're going to spend time marketing, then you have a year lead time. You better make the most out of it in the meantime, right? So.
Yep.
When I interrupted you before, you were kind of talking about the $1 to $5 million
Yes.
kind of size. So kind of wrap that up for me, if you would.
Yeah. So that last stage, 5 to 20 million plus, right, or more, is where you're starting to look at fueling consistent performance, right? And so at that phase, you're spending more time really optimizing your various marketing channels. You're going deeper into each channel to optimize even further. You're going to go a lot more data-driven decision making. You may dig deeper into various tools and dashboards to track more effectively.
Sure.
And you're really looking at tightening up your operating procedures, your automations, and making sure that you have alignment across all your teams, right? Your teams are bigger, marketing, sales, customer service, and making sure that all of those things are in alignment is really, really important. So the biggest thing you want to avoid at this stage is just letting things go on autopilot, because marketing is not a set it and forget it activity. It is an ongoing activity, and you're never done, testing, measuring, and learning. So if I had to break it down, those are the 3 areas that I would look at.
Yeah, and I love kind of how you broke it down, and the reality is that 0 to 1 million, that the owner's doing probably all of the work, or 95% of it, or whatever. The one, your 1 to 5, the owner's probably has somebody doing some, at least certainly helping. But by the time you're at 5 million plus, you probably have a marketing person. And potentially, as you grow and grow, you have marketing departments, and that's how you can go deeper and deeper into those things. And so I think it's important that MSPs focus on where they currently are, not maybe where they want to be, and really do that really, really well.
Yep.
So if we were to take one solid takeaway from our conversation today, right? Because MSPs love to try to boil the ocean, which is just nothing that's going to happen. What's that first cup of water that they can boil to move their marketing engine forward?
This is a tough question, man. But if I had to pick one thing that I think would really shift their business, it is to hone in on who your ideal clients are and then interview them. You will gain so much information from that process. So when I look at honing in on your ideal clients, I call them the 3 power questions. Who do you love working with? Who's profitable? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean top line revenue. It means profit. And who are you getting great outcomes for? If you can work with clients like that day in, day out, everybody wins, right? You're happy. Your people are happy. Your clients are happy. Ask yourself those 3 questions and look at your current clients that check all 3 of those boxes and interview them. Just have a 20, 30-minute conversation. Ask them, why they just chose to work with you, how they found you, really just get in their head and understand them and understand the value that you are providing them. It will be absolute gold, because you'll hear things in their words. They'll say things and you'll go, gosh, why didn't I think of it like that? And it's because we're too close to it.
And yeah, then you can turn those words around and use it to talk in your client's language, not your IT language, right? That's another thing that we could probably riff on for another hour, probably.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just go through that one process.
Yep. and then get consistent, right? If you do marketing stuff, whether it's going to networking groups or doing blog posts or doing content on LinkedIn, if you just do that consistently and you build it over time, you're going to see results. And you'll get even better results if you build a full on plan and you think about it holistically. But get away from that. Try this for 2 months, try that for 2 months, try this for 2 months, and go, marketing sucks. No, I'm just not going to do it, because that's usually what I hear. And build a plan, understand who your target clients are. I've been saying that for a long time. In fact, I just released a video on that not too long ago. I'll make sure I link it in this video as well. But know who those clients are. So Tim, I really love getting a chance to chat with you today. Tell us how we can get a hold of you, how folks can reach out to you. Of course, we'll put your information in the description of this video, but tell folks how they can get a hold of you.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. Best place, rialtomarketing.com. That's RIALTO marketing.com. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. The other resource I've got is at revenueroadblockscorecard.com. So when we help clients build their engine, we focus on 9 key areas. If MSPs want to know which of the 9 are slowing down their growth, that's where they can do it. Takes less than 5 minutes. It's a great self-assessment, and it'll give you some direction on where to focus.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, sir. And I look forward to doing some more work with you in the future. And folks, if you are looking for some marketing guidance, and especially strategic guidance, Tim's your guy.
Cool. Appreciate you, Adam.